all. Welcome to the roundtable. We've had a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. And today, joining me is Jeff Franklin, Mark the Infinitely Tired as always. How are we doing?
Doing fine.
Doing fine.
All right. So today we're going to kind of talk about less of it's kind of a historic event, but less about the main atmosphere and just narrow in on one thing, and that is the introduction to machine guns into World War One. Because even though it's kind of blinked over when you look back at World War One, because you start talking about the trenches, maybe the advent of tanks, but the machine gun really only gets 5 seconds of fame and then it disappears. The machine gun changed warfare. It fundamentally changed warfare the second it hit the battlefield. There was the old GAT, which, you took 5-man crew or whatever, but the one-man machine gun, where one man could operate it and just portably move it wherever they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a big, oversized machine. It was portable. It took one man to fire. Changed the war. Changed warfare from the minute that hit the battlefield going forward. We'd see it in World War II. We'd see it in every war fought since.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All tactics changed. And not only did it change on the ground, but it changed in the air. But we'll get there. First off, I kind of want to get everybody's thoughts on the introduction to the one-man machine gun on the battlefield. And I know when I said this topic, everybody kind of looked at me like I was on crack and went, say what? But it is really interesting if you just stop and think about, and you don't even need to really crack a book to see, or you don't really need to read to see the problems this would arise.
Well, I mean, you're looking at the difference in, like we discussed in the back, of cavalry charges and using single shot, with the Americans using single shot rifles, to the Germans with a distinct advantage in the battlefield, just laying waste to a battlefield with the machine guns. I know everybody quickly joined with the machine guns,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
you take the German offensive, or actually the Axis offensive, and if they were called the Axis, I don't remember what they were called in World War. Were they the Axis in World War One?
No.
Well, you take the German offensive, and you look at it comparatively to what the Americans and the British and the French had, and it was, it wasn't that great.
No. And unfortunately, the Allies took a little while to get used to this.
Yeah.
At the beginning
They
of the
weren't used
war,
to-
at the beginning of the war, they were still doing cavalry charges.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were still doing, like the old time, line up your troops and cross the field to meet the enemy, and they just mowed down before they got halfway across.
Yeah,
That's exactly it.
If you're a horse lover, don't watch early World War One movies.
Oh no.
Just saying. So Jeff, what about you? What are your initial thoughts and just thoughts on it?
Well, when you have a weapon that you can carry with you by yourself and you can fire dozens of shots in a minute, that's something new, something powerful that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
And that just, like you said, it changed warfare. And it resounded not only in World War One, but all throughout warfare since then. It just revolutionized what a soldier could do on his own.
Would you say comparatively, and I know this is a grand scale, that its effect on World War One was the effect that the atomic bomb had on World War Two?
That's an interesting thought.
In a way, yes. In a way, no.
Well, I know one's a much grander scale of killing people in the battle or
The
ending
atomic bomb
wars.
is a war ender.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
Um,
mean, but if you
Maybe
look
a
on the scale of how they
civilization
were
ender.
yeah, that too.
about how they were introduced, I mean,
Yeah, it was a shock and awe major.
yeah.
Like to give you an idea, if my memory serves me right, and well, it probably doesn't, but so I'm probably going to get the figures off and wrong, but oh well. Here goes. If you think about it this way, pre World War One, you'd have a line where, let's say, you needed 20 troops defending that line,
Mm-hmm.
to having to only need 3.
Yeah,
Well,
pretty much.
And also, you introduced trench warfare in the same time that the machine gun was introduced.
Trench
as
warfare
well.
was a result of the machine gun.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you were mowed down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it came from, it was a necessity. They had no other choice, because if you were above ground, you were dead. If you were
Pretty
within
much,
range and above ground, you were dead.
Mm-hmm.
So trench warfare was a direct result of the machine gun.
Well, when you
Then-
have 9 million dead and
Yeah.
21 seriously injured, mostly because of machine guns.
And not only that, but machine guns, not only for their killing power, but for their holding power. Because like I said, you went from having a line where you needed 20 men, skilled men on a rifle to hold that line. Because if you think about it, an average the average well-trained soldier in World War One, I think they could put 20 bullets down range in a minute, something like that.
That's with the that was with a bolt action lever.
That was with bolt, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you're talking about 100 bullets in a minute
Yep.
Mhm.
to 200 bullets in a minute from one guy.
Yep.
hmm
And as long as he's got ammunition, you could have a front where 20 soldiers would be normally needed to keep that, where you only need 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So even in a retreat, it changes the whole dynamic. Because you can hold that line with 3 people, as
Mhm.
opposed to needing, 20 to 30 men to hold that line. You now can do it with 3, 4, with well-placed machine guns and arcs of fire. They can hold that all day long with just the machine guns.
Mhm.
Which then brings in the next direct effect of that is the artillery. The artillery had to get bigger. The artillery had to get more accurate, because they had to take out these nests before the troops could advance. It also bred other scary things, such as the gas attack,
Mhm.
Yes.
which the Germans started and the British followed suit. As much as they don't like to admit that, but that's besides the point. So the whole idea of the trench war would not have happened had it not been for machine guns. The other thing,
Go ahead.
the other area that machine guns affected was the air. In World War One, the air war per se started with observation balloons. That's
Yeah.
where it started.
Mhm.
Little observation balloons. Then they found out, well, for better reconnaissance, we can send a plane up. They're a little feeble. They don't fly very fast. But you can attach a camera and you can fly right over you can fly right over the line. So let's do it with planes.
Mhm.
Then somebody got the brilliant idea, well, if we arm our planes with machine guns, we can take their planes out of the air.
hmm
And then you had your first dogfights. And then the Germans figured out, if we put the machine guns in the nose and fire them through the propellers, even better, because then you just point the plane and fire.
Yep.
So the machine gun then not only revolutionized the ground war, but it revolutionized the air war in World War One, and led to fighter aces and the Baron and all that wonderful stuff. Without the machine gun, none of that happens.
Nope.
Without
And
the
air
machine
warfare
gun-
was something new at that time.
Yeah,
So it,
very
it
new.
Really,
I mean, you're looking at what, a 5 or 6 year span when the Wrights first flew their first airplane to having biplanes
Yep, and triplanes.
and triplanes.
Yeah.
Triplanes are just an amazing thing to see. They're just big and weird. You're like, how the fuck does that fly? Because we're so used to like the float back wing and
Mhm.
but the slope back wing and but that thing was just odd. 3 different wings and propeller and yeah, it was fucking weird. They also, and then later on, they, the infancy of the bomber. Oh joy! Which was basically a guy with a mortar shell dropping it out of a fucking plane.
yeah.
And
Well,
bombing.
That was
let's not forget tanks either, because this is where the infancy of the modern tank came from as well.
Yeah.
And again, the tank was a response to the machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
So without the machine gun, do you really have any need for a big armored vehicle to get across the battlefield? Not really.
Nope.
It's the machine gun that forces the evolution of all these other things. The machine gun forces them to go to the air. The machine gun forces them to then fight in the air.
Mm-hmm.
The machine gun then forces them to create tanks so that troops can hopefully get across the damn battlefield without getting 100 bullet holes in them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Without the machine gun entering World War I as it was, a one-man machine gun, 2 at max, because sometimes it was a 2-man crew.
Mm-hmm.
Well, initially it was 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Even at the beginning of the war,
Yeah, 4 or 5
machine
men,
gun-
but then
machine
it
gun
gets down to
technology
2.
really advanced.
Yeah, it got
All right.
they caught on quick,
They did.
and it
Well,
was just
Well, considering that a machine gun at the time, at the beginning of the war, was the size of a regular cannon
yes,
from the Spanish-American War. I mean, yeah,
Oh, you're talking 80, 90 pounds.
Mhm.
yeah.
And going from a Gatling gun to what, a 40, 50-pound rifle?
Yeah. Yeah. And like the it was just insane. It was nuts because like I said and it took a while for generals on the other side, the Allies side, to realize that the old ways are not going to work anymore, which
Mhm.
then led to the trenches.
Yeah.
There was no gentleman's battle in the middle of the battlefield anymore. There was, if you were on the battlefield, you were dead. So out of necessity, trenches were made to get away from the machine gun bullets, i.e. the trench warfare. Without machine guns, that would not have been a necessity. And a lot of people don't stop to realize that without machine guns, World War I would have been a completely different war. Just taking that one aspect out changes the entire war. That one little thing,
Yep.
you pull it out, it's a different war completely.
I wonder if it would have ended quicker without machine
Probably.
guns. because you wouldn't have those trenches. You
Yeah, you wouldn't
those
have had the
lines
trenches.
It would
You
wouldn't
would have
move.
no. It would have been it would have been a very. I mean, it still would have been a bloody war,
Oh, yeah,
but
without doubt.
there would have been more cavalry charges. There would have been more open battlefield engagements. You would have been able to do your firing lines, and again, no trenches. It would have been open combat. And yeah, the war probably would have been over a lot quicker. However, machine guns, as I say, were the catalyst for every evolution in for mostly every evolution of World War One, from trenches to tanks to fighter aircraft to, without the machine gun, none of these are necessary.
Right.
Without the machine gun, airplanes aren't necessary. Without a machine gun, trenches aren't necessary. Without a machine gun, the tanks are not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have just been the same old horses, cannon, and troops.
Yep.
So I guess what we'll do is we'll go around the table and give our final thoughts, and we'll wrap this puppy up. Jeff?
Well, machine guns, you still see them today. I mean, they're used in modern warfare. They're necessity. It's just part of battle now, and it all started back there in World War One. And as you said, so many things changed because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark?
Well, I mean, to further what Jeff said, also, if you compare it to down through history as advancements in technology with warfare, you have steel with the swords, you have the machine guns of World War One, and the atomic bomb, like I mentioned earlier, World War Two. How quick things jumped in World War One between it and World War Two with the use of the machine gun. Just, I mean, between that and different things, just built up more modern warfare to where you couldn't go to war without it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me, I think it just amazes me how one thing changes everything. Without machine guns, World War One would have been a very different war.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna even guess on who would have actually won, but it would have been a different war. It was the war everybody prepared for.
Might be a good what if topic for
Yeah.
Kuna panel.
And I mean, without machine guns, World War One would have been a different war. World War One would have been, it wouldn't have been the blood killing fields that it was. Without that, we would never have been talking about trench warfare. The air war would have been non-existent. I mean, if you think about it, they started World War One with sighting balloons. That was as much as they thought they needed. Sighting and weather balloons. That's it. That's all we need. We just need to know where the enemy is, and then we'll send in the cavalry and we'll crush them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't work anymore. And it took a lot of men to die before certain generals would go, "Oh, you mean sending a whole bunch of troops at the line doesn't work anymore on horseback? Oh, shoot." Which in World War II would evolve to the tanks.
Mm-hmm.
The tanks took the places of the horses for a cavalry charge. But on that note, as I always say, thank you and good night.